There's a great book called, I think it's called Tribe by a war correspondent whose name is escaping me right now. But he talks about the difficulties that members of the military have when they come back to civilian life. And I've talked to a number of combat veterans on the
Mm-hmm.
podcast. I know a bunch of combat veterans. My dad flew 200 combat missions over Vietnam. And one of the points, this is a very short book, and I really recommend, is Sebastian Younger is the name of the author. And he's written a bunch of really, really good books. But anyway, it's a short book, and I recommend it to all the military people that I know because he talks about how, I mean, just imagine, Toby, being in this high intensity environment where you could get killed literally at any moment, and you're in this group of people that you become so close to,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go back to the United States and back to normal life. We just expect we expect our veterans just to go from this intense, like one of the most intense experience a human being could ever have, combat, war, and then you're just supposed to go back into normal life. That's what we
Yeah.
expect of them. That's not. I don't think that's reasonable. And part of this, I think, Toby, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, is maybe we need to put a little more focus as a country on not just sending our men and women, young men and women primarily, over to kill people overseas, but maybe we should put a little more emphasis on what we do with them when they get back.
Okay. Absolutely. And that's what the heartbreaking part is that it doesn't seem that emphasis is there, or it's very, very hard for them to get services that they need. And everything's very scattered. And I recently discovered there's time frames that for you to tap into some of those services, and you may try to tap in 6 months later and they're like, well, it's too late now, it's not available to you. And think of this year of COVID, how horrific it's been for so many people, losing their jobs. People are fearful of losing their houses. Their children now are home being homeschooled. People are terrified of getting ill. So this crisis has been very depressing, stressful for us. But imagine being in another country, literally in a war zone that you can't even sleep at night because you don't know what's going to happen. And then you're in combat and now you may lose your friend. This is someone that you are riding along with, you're looking out, and now the guilt that you have, but no one's dealing with those psychological issues when they come back. Or, my brother had to go to 3 different psychiatrists. They were all prescribing 3 different things because they just could not get him on tune with one doctor straight through. So, it's just so heartbreaking that those who really want to cry out and try to get the help they need, it's just so hard for them.
No doubt about it. And the other thing you said, which I think is very perceptive, is especially with the military and maybe sports and things like that, there is a mentality, and I played sports and know a lot of people in the military that look, just like you said, hey, toughen up, okay,
Mm-hmm.
quit being a wimp. And I don't know if you saw this, but last year, 2 very prominent NBA basketball players, DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love, came out and said that they had had some mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully the reaction was very, very positive. But for an athlete at that high caliber to come out, it's almost like you're admitting to being weak or having a weakness. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with the military guys. It is hard, and women, it is hard for them to admit that they have mental health, that they have a mental health issue. There's still that stigma, or at least there's this thought that there's this stigma. But I'm here to tell you. And by the way, when I had my issues, I just clenched my teeth
Mm-hmm.
and found meditation, and I never went to a doctor like a dumbass guy. So sorry for the language, but I look back on it in retrospect now that I know what I know, and I'm like, man, that was stupid. I could have gone to somebody like Dr. Carlia East
Mm-hmm.
and had a couple appointments, and she would have probably gotten me straightened up pretty quickly. And so, there's this idea that there's a stigma, but I think this is kind of, people are starting to catch on to this idea that, look, their mental health issues are real issues. They're just as real as physical issues.